So the Avalanche C-Chain recently passed 100 million transactions. And I saw shout out to Avaxholic, credit to the person who created this on Twitter there. When I saw this chart, somebody replied after them. I think this was on February the 17th, and they were like, not true. Technically, it's only 96 million. So I went and checked today on our official stats page. And I believe it's over 101 million now. So it is true that Avalanche has in fact had our C-Chain has had over 100 million. Let's see down here, cumulative TX count. And it's over 100 million, 101. That is a really staggering number, and that is a crazy chart. Look at this right here.
That the hockey stick curve.
That's what you want to see, because if you extrapolate out from that, it's just like, my God, it's going to be a vertical wall in like just 1 or 2 data points from now. If we got to, so the next chart is actually kind of even a little bit more illustrative. And I think many people know I think Ethereum is awesome. We consider Ethereum blockchain 2.0. So I'm not a person who usually we don't consider ourselves an Ethereum killer, that's for sure. But it is sometimes nice to compare metrics to get a sense of what's going on. I like this next chart. So basically what it's showing is that in 2015 to 2017, Ethereum went from 1 million to 100 million transactions. And we did that in 1 year. It took them 2 years. And then it took them 5 years to go from 100 million to a billion. So another 10x. How long will it take us? I suspect it'll probably take us around 2 years. So there's a couple of things.
Oh, you're crazy. Under a year.
Under a year. There you go. I like that even better. Yes, I was going to say, because what's happening is like, obviously the pace of change is accelerating, and the amount of time it takes from a nascent technology to mainstream adoption is obviously compressing, right? So this doesn't surprise me. I've said it many times, but it's just so cool to see in person. And there you go. Connor says even less than a year to a billion. I think if we go back over here, another cool thing to see was the cumulative addresses, which is,
and just give this a shout out real quick. So if you've never seen this page, and for audio listeners, apologize, this is not it might not be the best episode for you, but the YouTube metrics are doing a lot better. So audio listeners, you got to show out a little bit more if you want a little bit more premier coverage. But yeah, this is stats.avox.network. So this is an Avalabs hosted statistics, graph aggregator for different parts of the Avalanche network. So we have different tools for monitoring the C-Chain, looking at staking rewards, and the network status, and some validator health. So it's just a really cool page that just shows you some stats about the network. Very bare bones, graphically speaking, but trying to be all the useful data that most people care about. But another thing I was just thinking of, I actually was running out of disk space on my computer today, and I was kind of looking over at what I could delete, and I realized I had a copy of Avalanche Go and the Avalanche transaction database on my computer from probably like March. And I very quickly realized that I am never going to run Avalanche Go on my laptop again. Right. I do not need to sync 100 million transactions onto my computer and give up 50 gigs of disk space or whatever it is. I think it's more to it might be 200, but pruning's coming soon, so it's going to go down a lot. But I'm like, not for my laptop. I'll ask our DevOps team to spin me up a server if I need a private node.
Yes, absolutely. Plus our public API is so sweet. I don't know the exact number, and I'm not sure what's public, but I'm positive that we do we serve up billions of API requests through those nodes. So, of course you're using a free public resource, but it's hosted by all the labs and maintained by our platform team. But that's another, if you don't really need to run a full node, if you just need an RPC, obviously. So yeah, I want to call out. Yeah, you're hovering over it. The daily max TPS graph. We're consistently hovering above. Up, you should scroll up, and I lost the number. Oh, I'm sorry. You were talking about the daily max TPS. That was
impressive. We're consistently hovering above 150 transactions per second per day. Yellow bar chart right to the right of your mouse.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I apologize. Gotcha.
So, Avalanche can handle burst load very elegantly right now. And this is just over the last 30 days of we're consistently seeing high traffic moments and being able to handle it and not slow down. And I think that's really impressive. And it's something that is a kudos to our platform team for being able to make sure that Avalanche Go is efficient enough at writing to the database and not ballooning, that we can handle that kind of state load and state growth.
And it just
And
kind of, it speaks again to the power of scaling through subnets, because in theory, every single application could have its own subnet. And so it won't be competing with other applications for the total TPS, right? So if you're able to get up at the top, I think it says we've seen max 800, 869 TPS. This is our C-Chain. So imagine you launch your own subnet EVM and you launch your own instance of some existing NFT marketplace. You're not even doing anything special at all, just your own EVM, your own OpenSea clone, whatever. You're the only transaction, you're the only DApp on that network. So those 869 that we've seen, this max TPS, that's all you, and you're still getting that sub-second Snowman or Avalanche consensus finality. So I think it just speaks to scaling, through subnets is going to be very interesting. And then again, down here, it shows right here, we're now doing about probably a little bit less than a million a day. Now let's say 900 to 950,000 to a million transactions a day. These charts just, I've been in tech, I haven't been in the industry that damn long, but I've been doing my thing for over a decade. And these kind of graphs are really perhaps once in a career graphs. I mean, these are genuinely the kind of numbers you want to see, right? You're just seeing absolute exponential growth on some of these. And if you extrapolate out, my God, the numbers are truly insane. And it was cool. I was like listening to Connor when he was talking last week, kind of about the whole journey. And I think he said at some point, like, there was a time when Avalanche wasn't part of the crypto conversation, or it wasn't, I forget exactly how you phrased it, but we were in over 100. It wasn't a given that Avalanche was going to win. Obviously I believed, you know what I mean? I wouldn't have been here working as hard as I was, and Connor obviously did too, but there was a time when Avalanche wasn't sort of a given. And to me now that we're hovering at number 10, number 11 out of the trillion different coins, and we've got all this TVL and all these assets, to me, it would take a lot for Avalanche to fail now. Perhaps our price goes stagnant. Perhaps we drop out of the top 10. Sure, those things are possible, but the Avalanche network itself, it seems like it's pretty healthy and pretty vibrant now. And I think that's an understatement when you look at a chart like this, which looks even a little bit more powerful in this other format right here. But yeah, anyway, just 100 million transactions total on the Avalanche C-Chain. Now match it, every single subnet is hitting 100 million transactions. We only need 100, we only need 100 subnets if we're doing a million a day on each of them, and we're at 100 million a day. So yeah, when Connor says we'll go to $1 billion in less than a year, I could totally see that when you throw in subnets.
So I'm going to leak maybe a little bit of alpha here. I'm not going to be too specific, but I was out on a trip this week. Actually, we were doing some work trying to kind of plot out the future of some of the work that I and my team do. And I had an idea for a new use case for a subnet.
Ooh, nice.
And I don't want to totally reveal what it is, but can confidently say in the next 2 weeks, I think I'm going to launch my first subnet on testnet.
But huge news.
But yeah, so I've only developed on the C-Chain, but I think I will actually be transitioning over to building real applications on subnets in the very near future.
Oh, that's so exciting. Yeah, I mean, that's great news. I know of two that are brewing that, again, I'm not going to even come close to even hinting at because I respect people and I know they're not public. But yeah, I know of a really cool game subnets is coming into focus, and then another big, very popular mobile app that people would know if I mentioned it. They're going to be launching a subnet. And so already we're just seeing lots of seeds being planted, lots of subnets that are in the development phase, a few that are on Fuji, not so many that are on mainnet yet. But we're still in the first third part of the year, and I think 2022 is the year of the subnet. So I see things really coming into focus over the next couple of 3 months for sure, because I know so many different threads and so many seeds that have been planted. So that's going to be cool whenever we see what you build.
We're still in the prototype phase. I mean, I think the first subnets that come out are not going to be perfect out of the gate.
We don't know everything yet. We don't even have our sub asset transfers dialed in, right? There's permissionless subnets. There's a lot we don't know yet, but
I think that's actually been the biggest learning exercise, is having real applications actually build subnets for the first time and having people tell us, you forgot this API call that you need. And like just going through all of those growing pains and figuring out like, okay, well, if you have a subnet, you probably need a way to get an Explorer running pretty quickly. and like things like that. Like there's a lot of challenges that come with doing this. And so internally, we're very focused on making sure that, trying to find the smoothest path so that anyone can launch a subnet easily, and it's not this cumbersome process that requires a year's worth of effort. It should be fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And the biggest trip up that I have seen people trip up on, or maybe I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, but a question that nearly universally all teams ask is about validators. And you addressed it in your last show as well. Like, what if we have too few validators? Are we sacrificing decentralization? And as Connor mentioned, that's almost a feature of the platform, not sacrificing decentralization, but the ability to have as many validators as you want. So the challenge and the opportunity is to get systems in place, or ecosystems in place, markets in place, whatever the solution ends up being, to help subnets get over that hump very quickly. And I don't know if he mentioned it last week, but we were talking about it earlier today with another team. As far as I know, the WAGMI subnet, which we're going to briefly touch on here in a little bit, which is not an instance of, or no, it is an instance of the EVM. Spaces is not. WAGMI is a subnet EVM. I believe it has over 40 validators right now, and it's on Fuji. But I think that just goes to show that there are people who are eager to validate, and we've seen that in other ecosystems with Bitcoin miners. We've seen that with Ethereum miners. We've seen that in other systems where people delegate stake. People are very eager to put their computing resources to work if they can turn a return on it, right? It's like everybody wants
the WAGMI validators are doing it out of goodwill,
right? Because it's on Fuji.
It's
right?
all just experimental. But if it was profitable, if they were getting a WAGMI token out of that,
right.
If they were getting AVAX out of that, 100%, you'd have hundreds, if not thousands, of people doing that.
Yeah,
lots of stake weight. Because if it's profitable, people do it. Like, there's no shortage of sharks in crypto.
mm-hmm.
And there's tons of networks that require validating, and I don't think any of them are struggling to have validators,
Mm-hmm.
with the exception of maybe some that it's just like literally so difficult to run the software or hardware requirements. But even those that have some significant boundaries still have quite a lot of support from the community. So I think there's no reason to think that subnets won't be the same. If you can make a profitable subnet, people will come to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And more importantly, if you can be the one to really articulate the model, because that's where the real opportunity here is for this economic experimentation of incentivization for subnet validators. We don't know what it's going to look like yet. Are they going to issue their own token, charge transaction fees in that token, and give those to the validators? That's pretty incentive. If you can get any type of liquidity on that token and a DEX on the main net where we've got trillions of dollars, not literally, but billions and billions of dollars of liquidity, soon to be trillions. If you can issue a token and have that be your fee token and then give that to validators, that seems to me like the most natural, obvious way. Yeah. But
and I think the thing about crypto is when you enter for the first time, you feel so overwhelmed by the weight of everyone and everything that has come before. You see Ethereum, the Ethereum folks were kind of awed by Bitcoin. The Avalanche folks were awed by Ethereum. And it's so intimidating to break into the space and make a name for yourself. And it feels so hard because there's so many talented people, and it's just so challenging to stand out. So honestly, the best way to stand out is to find the ecosystem that's burgeoning, that doesn't have the same level of competition. For a while that was Avalanche, but honestly, Avalanche has grown a lot more competitive in the last, in the last year. Okay. But in a lot of ways, Avalanche is still very small. Like, if you want to be a content creator on Avalanche, Subnet Show might be the biggest podcast on Avalanche, and we've got 1,000 subscribers. There's some crypto YouTube channels that have millions of subscribers.
No, absolutely.
I see. On Avalanche, you don't have to compete with those people. On Subnets, you really only have to compete with just us. Yep. But it's technically too, if you have an idea for a crypto project, or if you want to really try to do something that's trend setting, you got to be at the bleeding edge. And I think for 2022, that's going to be subnets on Avalanche.
Yeah. And you said it really great last week, and Ivan said it when he was on here. The opportunity to specialize and to become one of the leading experts in the entire planet in this space is just unique. Again, you can't do that in Web 2. There's so many Web 2 developers, but right now there's two big opportunities that I see. Number one will be a subnet auditing. So, there's a lot of smart contract. There's not a lot. There's a few really good smart contract auditing companies And of course, every time we do anything at Ava Labs, we have it all audited and we issue out the audit reports, and we recommend all of our partners do as well. That same paradigm, but for subnets, obviously is going to be a thing. And then what we were also just talking about as well with validators, figuring out economics models of validators and incentivization. I just feel like both of those, if you could specialize within 3 months, you could be one of the specialists of the entire world. And then all of a sudden you're a serious player in a big growing ecosystem. But to back up what Connor's saying, I've always felt that and said that you want to find an ecosystem where your work is going to have an oversized impact. It's one of the reasons I focused on Bitcoin Cash, because I was focused on Ethereum and I was doing Ethereum smart contracts. But even then in 2017, I knew I couldn't have a huge impact on Ethereum. But when Bitcoin Cash launched, and this is before there was a religious war, so if anybody out there is groaning, I promise there was a time before there was a Bitcoin and a Bitcoin Cash religious war, a very brief window in time when Bitcoin Cash was just a cool thing. And at that time, I remember just being so into it, and there was no developer tooling. There was nothing at all. So I became the first library, and it blew up within 2 months. Over 110 countries that had been downloaded. And so it's always like that. You just want to find an ecosystem where your work can have an oversized impact. And as the C-Chain explodes, there's 500 dApps there now. It's just a lot harder to have an impact, unless you're doing something where not a lot of other people are doing it, like prediction markets or something, but like a DEX. So you're going to launch a DEX on the C-Chain? Probably not. But these different subnets, now there's the opportunity. Your work can have a hugely oversized impact. So one of the things we're going to talk about in a minute is a bridge that's up now on Fuji between WAGMI, the network, and the C-Chain. So you can now swap assets between these two different subnets on the Fuji. So that's not,
we're on the topic of subnets. Why don't we just jump over to that?
Let's do it. Let me open the docs here. We'll skip over the Morales hackathon thing for a second.
We'll